Oh my goodness, have we not been waiting for this particular moment? It is finally here. Welcome to the coverage of the 2026 FIFA World Cup in a way that can only be described as East African. All the way from Kenya, Mombasa, and Nairobi and its environments, whether you go to Kampala in Uganda or anywhere else, Malawi, you guys are paying attention. We are happy to have you. And of course, the host nation for this broadcast, Tanzania, are in action. Speaking of host nations, how about we turn our attention to the World Cup? You can see one of the host nations right here, the great US of A, Canada and Mexico. Actually, let's talk about these three mascots for a second. So it's more like 1, 2, and 3. This one is the first time that Canada is hosting this particular event, the World Cup. This is going to be one magical moment. They, of course, are followed closely by the US of A. It's their second tournament, so there's your number 2. And then Mexico, they're doing it for the third time. In fact, these boys are hoping that they can be as host debutants. Fantastic, just like their girls. Actually, when Canada hosted the Girls World Cup back in 2015, it was magical. They made it to the quarterfinals. Can the men do the same? That question will be answered soon. Then there's the US of A and Mexico. These guys are hosting it for the third time. This is the first time that while hosting, they are ever playing in the opening match. Speaking of opening matches, they've never won an opening match, so that would be quite interesting. And then there's a great US of A. The land of the free, they say. Well, you're free to come with your dreams of becoming world champions, but earning it is something that is totally different. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment that not only they are making history, not only FIFA making history with the expansion of the World Cup, not only Africa making history in terms of the number of teams going to this World Cup, but we right here in East Africa are making history. Take a moment, take a deep breath. You're part of history, my friend. An East Africa country, an East Africa organization, broadcaster, bringing the World Cup to East Africa in a way only they can do. How about we turn our attention to that particular event? We will have one amazing team, and we're glad that you specifically will be here. And if you're looking for all the action, 104 matches coming your way, no doubt about that. English and Kiswahili, already told you that. So Channel 2 is for Swahili, but you're here, so we're glad to have you here for English. All the analysis in terms of the build-up, in terms of the formations, the tactical analysis at halftime and the final, as we look at those goals, will be done right here, crossing right over to this big screen. You can see the opening game. It will be Mexico up against South Africa. My goodness, have we not been waiting for this moment? The moment is here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you and I to meet the guys who will be leading through when it comes to the build-up, which is coming up in a bit, and of course, obviously, halftime analysis and the final part of each and every game. We have 2 games coming your way. We have 2 sets of teams that will be walking you throughout this tournament, but for tonight, you'll have to settle in meeting just the first team. That's myself, Chico Lawi, and of course, we have the one and only Clive Chazi. Man, I'm trying to say that name properly, and I was told it's Cha and Ze for zebra. So Chaze, he's well known. He is a journalist, he's a marketer, a man who's done it all, radio, TV, and a man who's here for your entertainment and your information. Clive, what a big moment.
It is a big moment. Good evening, Chico, and happy to be part of the team for the next 41 days.
Well, we're glad to have you here, all the way from Uganda. In fact, his compatriot is sitting right next to him. He's a man who is known for holding nothing back when it comes to African football. He can criticize, and even when you want him to criticize and he feels that it should be praised, he'll go against the grain and he will praise. Right now, though, he's here to help us break down the World Cup just for you. The one and only, a.k.a. Tuka, Brian, my main man, the bearded Lone Ranger.
Chico, good to be here, and good for us to be in the same studio. A lot of Swahili has been spoken, so that caters for Kenya and Tanzania and a few people in Uganda. But I would also like to say hello to my people from Chigezi, Twaba, Chira, Azam TV. They need to know that we're going to be showing. Looking forward to the action. Can't wait for it.
All right, boys, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And while we are in Dar es Salaam, which is one amazingly beautiful city, I can tell you this, it is time for us to take a look at some of those memorable moments when it comes to what we can expect and see, or have expected and seen over the course of the World Cups. Every World Cup comes in with something magical, something unbelievably beautiful. I'd like to actually ask you boys, what is that moment over the course of all the World Cups you have watched that has stuck to you and you can say, that's why I'm in love with the World Cup?
Well, first memory will probably go back to 1994. Not that I was following what was happening, but because of the time zones that the World Cup was going on, I just remember this one morning, I don't even remember the time, when my father woke me up just to tell me how exciting football is. I don't know exactly what match he was watching or what highlights were in that game, but he just woke me up to just tell me, Ompira gunyoma, that football is fun. And of course, 4 years ago, the first World Cup experience I was able to be part of in Qatar that night in Lusail, where Lionel Messi eventually did win the World Cup. It is like the entire world wanted him to win the World Cup. The entire country wanted him to win the World Cup. And just being in that stadium, experiencing all that unfolding for me is something that will probably stick with me for a very long time.
What about you, Brian? What stands up for you in this short life you've experienced so far?
I'm not so sure I should say what stands out, but probably my fond memories of the World Cup. Like Clive says, I'm older than him, definitely, but I wasn't that old in 1994. But one of the things I remember is, and everyone talks about it, and up to today, it's still talked about, the Roberto Baggio miss.
Oh.
And then, yeah, the Roberto Baggio, it was such a huge memory about the World Cup that it's still talked about up to today, like I've said. And then also, in '98, showed us how great a player, and up to today, I still consider him the best player I've watched at the World Cups I've watched, Ronaldo da Lima. And I remember the commentary where they would praise everything from the shoes up to the head. They commented, I would even admire and tell us how beautiful the legs are. And fully deserving. Because I think, for me, I don't think there's ever been a better number 9 in world football.
Interestingly enough, I've been around a bit longer than you, yet my memory comes from just the recent World Cup. I will never forget how that ball, as they were trailing 2-1, having pulled one back already, France take it to the right, cross it slightly in, and by the way, Messi shoved off, sits on the ground, it's moved to the middle, moved to the far end, brought back in the middle, crossed back to that end, left side, and then Mbappe with that just falling finish, like, boom, brilliant football. And then ultimately Argentina winning that particular one. It was frustrating for me as a France fan at that moment, but yeah.
Yeah, and beating the best goalkeeper at that World Cup, by the way. You need to add that. That's how good the finish was.
And beating the best goalkeeper at that World Cup. Now, we have so many memories, and we can walk down memory lane. Roberto Baggio will always stick around and know that he brought them right here, and yet they lost out. How about you? What's the memory you remember? We have a few socials. I'd like you to run you through them right there. You can see them on your screen. We have Azam TV Kenya. If you are in Kenya, talk to us. Azam TV UG in Uganda, and Azam TV ZW, which is from Malawi, so Zimbabwe. So if you are watching us and you want to weigh in, how about you share your thoughts via social media and let us know exactly what memory stands out for you so we can share in, and we'll take a look at some of those socials. So please weigh in. This World Cup is all about you. Speaking of which, how about we get ready to delve into that World Cup, but it would not be a World Cup held anywhere unless you know where we're holding it. So now is the opportunity that we will have to turn our attention to where the cities which are hosting the World Cup will look like, and what we can expect. How about we take a look right now? right, so now you know some of the feel of what you can expect. You can see our studios right here at Azam TV looking absolutely beautiful. Some of the cities which will be hosting the World Cup are also looking absolutely beautiful. The gentleman who will be walking us through the analysis of this particular one, I'd love to say are looking beautiful, but that would be a straight up lie. So gentlemen, at least you look suited up, ready for this particular one. Clive, let's start off with you. I'm just wondering what you make of this expanded World Cup, because now it changes the approach to the World Cup entirely.
Well, 211 member associations, 48 of those get to qualify for the World Cup. Not so many people are happy about it. Personally, I don't have a problem with having a 48 Nations World Cup. Problem is when they try to expand it to 64 moving forward, because FIFA feels they need to do so many things for starters, for the revenue purposes of things, but also to try and give an opportunity to as many countries as possible to be part of a competition like the World Cup, because they believe the more they do that, the more they are reaching their objective of developing football in different parts of the world. Today you have a country like Cape Verde qualifying for the World Cup at the expense of a country like Cameroon. Yet when it was 5 countries coming from Africa, Cameroon and Nigeria qualified with ease for the World Cup. So for them, they feel that's a plus. Football will never be the same in Cape Verde. So many lives are going to be changed by Cape Verde playing at the World Cup. Countries like Curacao, countries like Haiti, countries like Uzbekistan are playing at the World Cup. So the entire objective in their world is the fact that they want to use the World Cup to go out there, not only to develop football in different parts of the world, but to also try to give hope to young people out there. Sometimes that statement does not make sense until you probably get to experience it yourself. I was privileged to be at the Under-17 World Cup last year, where Uganda debuted at their World Cup, and it was a totally different feeling being in a stadium when you're looking at all these young boys representing your country at that level. So probably you get that gut feeling that most of these countries that are going there for the first time, their locals are feeling that way, and so many lives are going to be changed by them just being at the World Cup, and they wouldn't probably have achieved it if FIFA don't expanded it to 48 nations.
What about you? Expanded to 48 teams. This will have to be approached totally different by the teams, will it not?
No, definitely it has to be different. First of all, they are playing more games, so you've got to be calculative if you're going to win the World Cup, because the next stage of the tournament is where the World Cup used to start, which is a round of 32. So imagine a big country missing out on the round of 32 to feel like you are never at the World Cup. So you have to be calculative, because already there's been talk of the fatigue of players, how much football has been played. But this is the World Cup. Everyone forgets about it and they focus on that. But like Clive have said, it's a big opportunity for some of the smaller nations, Curacao, Haiti, Jordan, Uzbekistan. Those are big opportunities for them to sell some of their talents. Who knows, we could have the first player from Jordan or Curacao play in the Premier League or play somewhere in the major European league. So it's a big one. But I hope it stops at 48. I'm not so sure. That's still a dream when it gets 64. The next thing, we're going to be having 200 countries at the World Cup. That won't be a World Cup tournament. Excuse me?
Like I said, he doesn't hold anything back. Did I not warn you? However, it is a dream that could happen to a lot of players. Heck, I'm from Kenya. We've had a player play in the Premier League. We've had a player win the Champions League, has a medal, and that was under Jose Mourinho, whose team, Portugal, will be in action and will be delving into some of these teams throughout the course of the tournament. However, it is all about the cities which will be hosting it, the 3 main countries, and we start off obviously with the likes of Mexico, where this particular game begins. And interestingly enough, it is high altitude, which will then also affect some of the players and some of the games. Mexico will have Monterrey, Guadalajara, and of course Mexico City.
Yeah, definitely high altitude is going to play a part. Everyone who has been looking at the game, they've been talking about how South Africa could be affected. Probably everyone who's going to be playing against Mexico, but he must have prepared for that going into the World Cup. You're not going to give that as an excuse for you to lose the first game or be battered or be embarrassed. You have to go and do your job. It's that simple. It's definitely a big advantage to the Mexicans who have grown up there and know exactly how to manage that. For South Africa, huge adjustments will be needed. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of time because national team football doesn't give you a lot of time. But all that doesn't matter. Once the ref blows the whistle for us for kickoff, once it's game time, we don't care what happens elsewhere. You have to play the game.
Absolutely. We're getting closer and closer to the opening ceremony, so I'll try and rush this one along. Let's take a look at the cities that will be hosted. Now, Mexico, we've seen those three. They'll be hosting 13 games. It'll be equal for Canada, who will be hoping to get a bit more. But Canada's hosting cities will obviously be the focus as Canada hosts, among the three, the World Cup for the first time. Clive.
Well, first time, of course, they probably wouldn't have achieved this if it wasn't a joint bid having USA and Mexico together with them. You feel USA had the ability to host the World Cup independently, but they probably thought they would have more ground if they did it as a unit. If you remember, they were competing against Morocco, who had actually submitted a bid to host this World Cup. So if they had won the bid, they would have shown their ability to host the 48 nations. But you talk about the issue of the weather, and you feel not only in Mexico or Canada, but the entire competition. If you remember the FIFA Club World Cup, how games were always stopped because of the weather. The England friendly yesterday was also stopped for a couple of minutes. So you expect to see a lot of that throughout the competition. And looks like the Americans don't have a solution for nature. The Qataris had that solution after the World Cup was switched to November and December, and you could see how they switched up things to make sure everyone was comfortable.
Is this guy going to be allowed in the USA? Is he saying Qatar have more solutions or better solutions than the USA?
No, they did, because they faced a lot of criticism and they just found a solution for everything that was thrown their way. Now, the Americans had the FIFA Club World Cup as a dress rehearsal, and they just didn't have solutions to how to deal with things like weather, the humidity, and stuff like that. We come into the World Cup and looks like they still don't have a solution. So expect lots of stoppages in some of the games that are going to be played, simply because they have certain rules that don't allow games to go on because of certain things that have happened with the weather.
Absolutely. Well, the U.S. is the one that will host a chunk of these particular games. We all know how excited we were for the World Cup to be hosted. Questions abound as to whether it would be the best World Cup in that particular country, and that's what Brian is alluding to with will Clive be allowed to go to the U.S. of A? We'll delve into that in a moment, but you've already seen 78 matches will be hosted across those cities. New Jersey will finally, Kansas, so many cities across the U.S. of A will be hosting those matches throughout the tournament, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and of course the finals. The final rounds of the 2026 FIFA World Cup will be hosted in the US, and people move away from Mexico and of course away from Canada. Now we can talk about some of the controversies. Gentlemen, so much drama surrounding it. How about we start off to the place that you were obviously itching for, Brian, the referee, Omar Artan.
First of all, I want one day to visit the USA. They are good people. Let's start there. So, but listen to me. So, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I'll be very honest with you. Just like everyone, just like all Africans have been extremely disappointed. It was such a shame that he was stopped from entering the USA. We've been talking about dreams. We talk about Canada. The hosting of the World Cup might never leave the Canadians and the country as a whole the same. That's the same thing for the footballers who are making their debuts at the World Cup. It's a big opportunity. It's dreams being fulfilled. There's someone else's dream that was, like he said, dashed or shattered, because it would have been such a great moment having a Somali referee again with all the problems. I remember when we were going to play against the Somalis at the, I think it was the Chan tournament. Was it the Chan or the French Sekafa? And for them, they were talking about losing a game wasn't bothering them that much. And they were trying to tell their story saying, you people don't understand where we're coming from. And they say, for us to play this game, to bring people together with what we've been through, it's a dream. It's what we look at. Now, imagine how many Somalis were going to be united just seeing their referee at the World Cup. It's such a shame that whatever happened did happen, but hopefully it will be compensated big time now that we know is going to be refereeing a game probably he would never have refereed, and that's the European Super Cup. It's good consolation, I must say.
Yeah, win some, lose some, and that man will be the one who is in the middle and in charge of that game when it finally comes across for the Champions League and Europa League winners. That is Aston Villa up against the PSG, but that's in the future. What he won't be touching is that World Cup. He is at home, just like you and I, watching from the TV set and enjoying the tournament. Iran would be in the US, but they had to shift to Mexico while all their fixtures are in the US. There's another bit of controversy.
Which is a big embarrassment. And for me, I thought FIFA should have done better. Yesterday, Gianni Infantino was asked if he's losing control of his own tournament, something that he downplayed. And he prided himself in the fact that he convinced Iran to come and be part of the World Cup. But the fact that they have to camp in the USA simply because Donald Trump does not think that the Americans are safe with having the Iran team camping in the USA. That doesn't make sense at all. Some players, or rather officials, were denied visas. Journalists were denied visas because, according to the Americans, they might be spying for some rebel groups out there. So you thought that the Americans have stamped their foot on a competition when they should be actually using this as an opportunity to extend an olive branch to some of these parts in the world, Iran inclusive. Remember when America attacked Iran together with Israel, they almost contemplated on taking part in the World Cup, and you thought it was a state of bother for FIFA, it was a state of bother for Gianni Infantino. He was eventually able to convince them, they accepted to take part in the World Cup. Then Donald Trump comes out and says that he does not guarantee their safety in the USA. So that is how they end up camping in Mexico while they're playing games in America. So you feel that FIFA is losing control of its own tournament, and you thought they should have done better, because if it was any other tournament, if it was any other country that was not America, you thought that FIFA would be stamping their foot, but they're not doing the same this time around when you expect them to.
Let me also remind Clive that the word rebel applies more to our continent than in the United States. United States, they use terrorists. So you correct that. We need to train him. When he lands, there are things you shouldn't be saying. You use terrorists, not rebels, I think.
No, when you use terrorists, you might end up being...
No, but that's what they use.
You might look one and they're like...
Well, I'll tell you what, Clive, I know you will be heading to the US of A, and there lies the question, will you be allowed in that country, considering the things you're saying? Listen, there's also Uzbekistan, who are, debutants coming in for this particular one and then being extra frisked. Not to mention Senegal and the treatment. They're veterans, they're Africans. Heck, some will say they're African champions, but I guess the law and the courts are waiting to decide that particular one between themselves and Morocco. That drama aside, more drama at the World Cup. Frustrations for the teams all round.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, for the scrutineering, I think what usually used in rally, but we'll use it this time around because it felt the same. I think it could be normal. But we're talking about superstars who usually have special treatment. These guys are VIP guests for the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And unfortunately, they were treated like probably they would treat me and Clive, who would be nobodies. We're talking guys who play in the Premier League, in the La Liga, who are treated like proper idols, superstars, celebrities. If, like I said, if you're treating a normal guy going for the World Cup, that would be okay. And I think that's what makes it a big headline. And it wasn't only Senegal. It wasn't only probably Uzbekistan, like you're saying. We saw pictures of Kevin De Bruyne. He's practically being told to take off his shoes. I don't know whether he had a problem with stockings or something like that. I cannot understand that. Because these are supposed to be VIP. You wouldn't expect any footballer to be an agent of a guy who wants to add the USA. So it's such a shame. But one thing what the game does once it kicks off, we'll forget about all that. So I'm sure Gianni and his team can't wait for the ref to blow that whistle for Mexico and South Africa to kick off, and we forget about that. It's been quite sickening.
It is. Well, sickening is a strong term I'd use, but it is frustrating. However, like I said, Brian, a.k.a. Tuka, really doesn't hold back. What I want you to do right now is take a moment and look up. Now, it's very easy for us to talk about, football and the cost. Look at this set. It's absolutely stunning. How much effort, how much money has been put into this particular one by Azam TV? I can only imagine, can't fathom that amount. You know what else I cannot fathom? Is how much money it will take for a fan at the US of A, Mexico, and Canada to follow their team from the first group stage game all the way to the final, should it reach the final. Over $6,900. Where are you? Translate that into your local currency. For Kenya, that's nearly $1 million shillings, just short of $1 million shillings. Boys, if there's ever a controversy that really does concern me and you, it would be one that involves the fans and the fans' pocket. It's almost like this World Cup has been made to be harder for us to follow.
Yeah, it's been quite unfortunate. I mean, there was a story I was watching, what was it, a month ago, of a ticket that was going for, what was it, $11 million or something like that? Of course, some of them sounded out of this world, like a ticket 11. What are you talking about? Is there anybody who wanted to buy? There could have been a filthy rich guy who wanted to just make history and buy one of the most expensive tickets. Because even in
I'd
the
have
USA,
to be sitting in the middle of the pitch for that one.
And meanwhile, it wasn't the best of tickets.
It was one of the worst seats.
It was one of the worst seats in the stadium, and they're talking about $11 million. But that's probably for one or two people who have got their money. But the real fan of the game does not have that money.
That's true.
And it's the guy you want to leave in the game, because this is not the end of the football game. You're going to watch the World Cup. You want them to keep watching football in the United States, in the UK, in the whole of Europe, Africa, and the likes. If you clearly hit them hard in their pockets, it could have an effect actually across the world.
Brian, what happened, and I was reading about it, the USA has this law where you can buy and resell. Well, we have people being arrested for selling World Cup tickets in the country where we come from. The Americans have that law. So this is what happened. Tickets were really cheap and affordable. Now, people bought the tickets. Now, after buying the tickets, they put them back on the market, selling them at different prices. That is why we were able to see the different prices that we saw out there. But also for me now, this is where I fault FIFA. If I buy a ticket, let me say at $1,000, and I put it back on the market for, let me say, 10,000, 100,000 US dollars and stuff like that, guess what? FIFA takes 15% of what I sold that ticket. So they're making money all around. Exactly.
Yeah,
they have already bought the ticket,
on the platform,
I'm selling it at whatever price I want. They are still getting 15% of that. So they are encouraging the resale because they know the more expensive the tickets are, the more actually money they are making, because only 7 million tickets were available. And all those 7 million tickets were sold, but almost 70% of those were put back on the market for different prices. And that is what people are trying to buy them. And everyone thinks that the World Cup ticket is actually expensive, yet the original price was very affordable.
In Kenya, we say, ukipata chance ya kula, tuachie tukule. Clearly, some people in the USA have decided it's their time to eat, so eat away. A lot of scams as well in terms of the website. Over 15,000 websites coming up that were fake. So it leaves you wondering as a fan, how in heaven's name are you going to watch the World Cup? I'll tell you how. Azam TV, East Africa. It's just that simple. And it's not just about what they've invested. We have invested heavily here for the World Cup, but it's also the fact that when it comes to changing the game in the East African region and beyond, good evening, Malawi. Azam TV has done exactly that. I'm talking about Uganda and obviously where the two boys are from, Kenya with the local league. If there's anything Azam has done is put their foot down and say we will grow the game for the sake of the game and the people in East Africa.
Yeah, I'll be very honest with you. I think the time when you didn't have a lot of financial issues is when they were actually covering the game. I'll be very honest with you, and I hope whoever is watching, if the bosses are watching, if you want me to kneel, I'm going to kneel. We want you back in our country, Azam, covering the league.
I'd love to see you kneel.
And boxing, if you can, because I cover the game. I cover different sports disciplines back home.
Yeah.
And when you talk to the guys in the game, I've spoken to different stakeholders, and they're saying When they were here, things were a lot better. And you have to think, anybody who invests in sport in Africa, you have to give them a lot of credit. Because sometimes it's not as rewarding as it should be. But I think Azam has done a magnificent job. We talk about a lot of younger today and Simba, but I feel they played a huge, huge role in who they are today.
You talk about Yanga and Simba. I talk about Azam FC because not only are they supporting a league, they're actually supporting a team in the league. Not to mention the coverage of the FKF Premier League in Kenya. And now Brian Tuka is begging you, hey, I dare say we'll go on his knees at the end of this production just to try and get Azam to come back to Uganda. I think it's a bit more complicated than that.
The management should not allow a grown-up man to beg that much.
I think you should.
Please.
Clive, but what a great growth we've seen with Azam. And you know, I was listening to a story that I was being told. It's interesting that Azam started in efforts to build the Tanzanian league. There was coverage of other leagues, but they were being ignored, for lack of a better term. And then Azam were like, how about we start supporting our own and building our own, and from home, they have crossed the borders to help others.
Without a doubt, and when they started out at home, they were embraced. So when the community, the football community embraced them, when the fans embraced them, it probably made their job easy to go out there and grow. And the hunger to invest in the game just kept on growing. And today we see where the Tanzanian Premier League is. A lot of investment has been put by Azam. From TFF to the league board, you feel that they are doing so many things right because they have television. And the league is not only for the Tanzanian audience, but you did say across the region. In Kenya, in Uganda, in Rwanda, Burundi, you're talking about Malawi, you're talking about Botswana. And they're not stopping there. They are spreading their wings. They are hungry. They feel that they should, what they have done in Tanzania, they should be able to do across the region. And you feel it's just a matter of time. If the other parts of the region can embrace them, then they should be one of the biggest investors of sport in this region in the next 5 or 10 years.
But most importantly, very affordable. That's important. The World Cup, I'm sure, they've invested a lot of money. For them to be charging people just to watch it at the price they do, probably it's one of those few times when we ask people to be punished for giving away too much, just like what Azam has done.
Absolutely. Listen, even in Kenya, who, by the way, are a country that I'm from, and lovers of football, just not, to be honest, on the level of Tanzania, the commitment for Tanzania and Uganda to a certain extent is unbelievable. But even in Kenya, where it was drying up in the stands, the Azam movement brought back to life Kenyan football, and we have seen a steady trickling in of fans back into the stadium, which then reminds you, not just for the big games, AFC Leopards and Gor Mahia, Shabana are in there. A lot of teams from the rural cultural point of view are bringing back the fans, and now we can watch it all live on Azam TV.
Without a doubt, because, I mean, if you have action on TV, in our country, people have this misconception that if something is live on TV, people won't come to the stadium. They forget that it's the other way around. Yeah. Every time you have something on TV, you're actually encouraging more people to come into the stadium. But also in moments where you can't have people come into the stadium because probably the game is away, I'm committed elsewhere, they have the opportunity to follow the game on TV, Azam TV, the app, and stuff like that. So you feel that the more you have TV in your community broadcasting these games, the more it helps for you to grow the numbers. And the more you grow those numbers, the easier it is for you to go and pitch to have sponsors on board. That is why today it is very hard to have a team in the Tanzanian Premier League that does not have a sponsor. Because of television, they know they can reach so many eyeballs, not only across Tanzania, but like we did say, including the continent. And they have also now started attracting big partners in FIFA and CAF, because you've seen the kind of broadcasting they have been able to do for the CAF Champions League, for the CAF Confederations Cup, not only because they have 4 Tanzanian teams playing in those competitions, but because they also have the ability and capacity to broadcast these games, not only for this region, but now for the rest of the continent and the world over, because African football is no longer only watched by Africans, but it is watched globally.
I'm glad you brought in the aspect subject of African football because I'd like us to turn our attention to the African nations, 10 of them who are representing Africa at the FIFA World Cup 2026. But before we do, go back to 1934. We had just one nation. You see that first row right there? Go down to the second last team, Egypt, 34, the only representative. That went on until 64 years later, 1998, 99, if I'm not wrong, it was 1998, in which we saw 5 teams. Fast forward to 2010, 6, and bang, Ghana gets to the quarterfinals. Come to 2026, Africa, 10 teams at the World Cup. What are the chances we walk away with this one?
You know, one of the biggest discussions about the 48-team World Cup was if it's not going to affect the quality of the World Cup.
Yeah.
But amongst all the confederations that have had teams playing at the World Cup for the first time, I think the Africans have got the strongest contingent in terms of adding quality to what was already there. Apart from Cape Verde, who by the way, I can guarantee you, even when they don't win a game, people will love watching them.
Did you say even when? It's not if.
Yeah.
But when?
Even if, okay. Even if they don't. Even if they don't, I'll tell you, people will love watching them. And they will get a lot of compliments after the World Cup. Now, look at the rest of the teams that are in there. Egypt, DRC, Algeria.
DRC back since 74, right?
Exactly. First time in what? Over, was it 30 years? Over 30 years anyways. South Africa, Senegal, a lot of quality in those countries. You can't underestimate any of those. So there can be those who are wondering, why on earth would you give Africa all the 10 slots, which is silly and ignorant of those who are questioning that. But I'll tell you, these teams here are going to bring a lot of quality because of what they have on show.
Like you said, veteran teams will be the ones we focus on, and no secret out there that North Africa is the one that has given us the biggest contingent and is possibly one of the strongest. But then we do have the likes of Senegal and the Black Stars who can wake up on a good day and decide, today we're making Africa proud, and go a long way into the tournament. Or they could wake up and decide to be Brian and frustrate the life out of you. It all depends on how they show up, but we will be supporting them 100%. And in fact, I've been seeing a lot of CAF's social media. They've been very keen on supporting the African teams. However, they have to go up against the Europeans. They hold the majority of the teams that will be considered the favorites going into this big tournament, and it's a big one for them. Number one on that list will definitely have to be the likes of Spain. Germany, of course, one of the European countries that will be respected. England, they have depth, they have quality, they have diversity. If a World Cup team could be considered favorite, it would have to most definitely come from the European side. UEFA.
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, outside Argentina and Brazil, no other team has won the World Cup apart from teams from Europe. Even when we still had 32 nations or even 24, they still had the biggest contingent because they feel UEFA has offered much to football globally. But you look at most of the teams going for the World Cup from Europe, and you feel they'll need a lot to do in terms of competition. Probably you look at South America, and the only competition they will be looking at is probably Argentina, Brazil, a bit of Uruguay and Paraguay here and there. So they will always be our favorites. But we should also remember that most of those who've always branded the tournament teams, they have flattered to deceive in the last editions of the World Cup. Germany have struggled to get out of the group stages of the World Cup since they won the competition in 2014. That was in Brazil. Spain, you can say they were a no-show in Qatar. Hopefully they have addressed all that coming into this one. Portugal, from the generation of Figo coming into Cristiano Ronaldo, they are flattered to deceive at this stage, but they still have people who believe in them. You want to say something?
I'm just wondering, from that list that we've just seen, who would you put as favorites from UEFA? The top 3 teams that you think, if they don't get to the semi-finals, it's a failure, it's a disappointment.
I'll pick France, I'll pick Spain, I'll pick England.
First of all, I think they have the biggest number of favorites.
I agree.
Yeah, so because Africa, we are hoping we can do well. We are not attempting to move way ahead of ourselves by winning, but hopefully it happens. South America, I think for me it's Brazil and Argentina. Now you look at that list there. Portugal, you have to have an eye on them. I think they're a very good team. And while people have been talking about them flattering to deceive, the impact of Neves, Vitinho winning the Champions League back-to-back is going to be huge on them. Taking that experience, the World Cup, on top of the likes of Bernardo Silva, Bruno, and definitely their greatest footballer, Cristiano Ronaldo. That's going to have a huge impact on what they might do. Because when you amass that experience, even when you go a goal down, you believe you can still do it because of what they have been through at their clubs. And that I'm sure is going to be, if they translate that in the national team, then they're going to be big. So you have Portugal, you have England, you have France, you have Spain. Now that's probably the least star-studded Spanish team since 2010. When you look at the names, I mean, apart from Rodri and Lamine Yamal, they've got some really technically gifted players in there, but they're not the biggest of names you'll be worried about. But they have one thing. They know how to play as a team. They've got a system, they've got structure, and that's very key. So for the Europeans, a good number of them, but I think if you ask me, who would be most disappointed because the noise that may come out, if the English don't make it to the semi-finals, it's trouble.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that particular one because it's been sang time and again. The Three Lions, it's coming home this time round. I do feel it might be coming home because it's a point that we will be discussing throughout the tournament where depth, ability to rotate, considering the vast areas that they have to travel, some of these teams, in order to play games, the climate change of one place to another, those challenges, and not to mention the heat, could actually potentially play a part in a tournament that is more technology-driven, statistics, numbers, even in terms of substitutions and rotations and who to start and the presses than any other tournament. So that might just play into the hands of a Spain in a tournament that will not be dependent on stars, but mainly on the team playing as a unit. But that's UEFA. How about CONCACAF? Now there's somewhere we can look at and wonder, will we get someone who will stand out from the rest in the crowd and challenge for the world champions crown?
No chance, apart from giving us...
What?
Apart from giving us 3 hosts in USMX and Canada, I don't think anybody from the CONCACAF can go out there and probably shock the world.
Curaçao, you had it here first.
Yeah, okay, but...
I'm telling you.
For instance, I'll give you an example. The United States of America, you would think that probably they can rely on their home advantage to go far in the tournament. But when you look at the job Pochettino has been doing with his team in their build-ups and stuff like that, there's been a lot of struggling. And because they are America, you don't really see them as a country that can go out there and give you much. They have the home advantage, but what are the chances that they will be able to use the home advantage? There's something that not so many people are talking about, but something that is going to be complained about a lot throughout the tournament, starting today. FIFA decided that they are going to manufacture grass that will be used throughout the tournament across the different fields, the training grounds, the pitches, and stuff like that. And the complaints have already started, not from one camp or another, from different camps. So there are teams that probably want to play football a particular way, and they are going to struggle because of the surface. You could look at some of these players trying to bounce the ball could not bounce, that the ball can't be passed, and stuff like that. So there are teams that are going to struggle, but I don't think any team from the CONCACAF can utilize that to go out there and probably build on that to be a force.
It's Clive, to be honest with you, both you and Brian are sounding more like doomsday prophets, but I have a feeling that it would be embarrassingly ignorant of me not to point out that Mexico is hosting the tournament. They did it in 1970, 86 as well. How far did they go? Both cases as host nations, quarterfinals. What makes it different considering how they play as a unit throughout the qualifiers?
And throughout the competition, they have never gone beyond the quarterfinals.
I think we need to thank them for organizing a good World Cup, and that's where it will stop. In all fairness, if they do it, that'll be quite a big shock, in all fairness. But like Clive said, I mean, Curaçao is just a good thing to see a small nation like that being at the World Cup. I don't see anything beyond that. I think they would struggle really, because even in terms of quality, I don't think they have enough. You look at the Mexico team, because there are two teams, Mexico and USA. Canada, once you have a nation where you mention the two superstars, because when you say Canada, you talk the name Davis, and that's where it stops. Alfonso and Jonathan, and that's it. The rest, you've got to be scratching your head. Mexico, 1 or 2, 3 players, and that's it. So you're going to struggle to beat teams that have got a whole load of quality in there. So brilliant hosts, we hope. Going far, we hope.
Highly unlikely.
But also, Chico, when you look at the recent past, how often have hosts really impressed at the World Cup? In France 98, they went all the way to the final. They won it. 4 years later, South Korea went all the way to the semi-finals. I think Japan was round of 16 or quarterfinals. 2006, Germany capitalized on that to get themselves into the semi-finals before Italy demolished them. South Africa, they failed to get out of the group stages. Brazil built on home advantage until they landed in the jails of a hungry German side. 2018, Russia, they didn't really go far. Qatar 2022, no one really expected them to go that far, and now here we are. I mean, you're looking at 3 hosts who don't really have a history of putting up impressive shows at the World Cup. So it would be unfair on us to actually have that belief and confidence that USA, Mexico, and Canada can go out there and shock the world.
But also what makes it hard, I think, is that while we talk about a 48 team, and going back to the point I was making, questions about the quality, most of the teams you would have expected to be at the World Cup are there. I think apart from Italy. And for me, that complicates matters. So when you look at the groups, there's about maybe 2 or 3 groups where you struggle to pick out the 3 that will come out of the group stages. The rest, you can clearly see that these 3 will come out of the group. Now, that spells doom for the host, because you might land on a big team, even in the round of 32. And I'm not so sure that helps matters. But we'll wait and watch and see what could come out. The beauty about football and sport, what makes it special is that things that you don't expect to happen do happen. And who knows what Mexico and the United States and Canada could do.
That phrase will probably be one that gives morale to the likes of Uzbekistan and Japan. They're making their debut in this World Cup, and right behind me, you've seen it in a moment, you'll see it on your screen. One other team that made their debut 2022 was Qatar. They are all coming from one specific region, and that is the Asian side. And I'm looking at those teams, and I'm wondering, apart from Japan, which, by the way, is my dark horse for the tournament, who else do you think could take us far enough?
Well, maybe a bit of South Korea, because of their hard work, togetherness, willing to leave everything on the pitch. And it's not that the other teams don't do it, but in terms of a bit of quality. Australia have been to the World Cup a couple of times, so you get a feeling they could also cause a few issues. But I think South Korea, for me, is the other team from that confederations that could cause a few issues and probably give some big boys some headache.
What about you, Clive? Any favorites going to this one?
Japan. I thought for me, South Korea, yes, they built on 2002, but Japan, for a very long period of time, they have really gone out there and been a hard nut to crack for most of the big boys in the tournament. I'm not saying they are really going to go far in the competition, but from the teams in Asia, I feel Japan is one of those that will build on what they have been doing in the recent competitions.
All right, boys, this is where I want to go next. By the way, I agree with you on that one for Japan, because Japan is one of my favorites going to this particular one. I've seen the way they play. Heck, I'm hoping we're doing the build-up for the Japan game, but if not, it's going to be Peter Otai and Bernard, obviously Felix Sapao, Bernard Otieno from Kenya, who will be guiding us through that particular one. Either way, I know it'll be done justice. Speaking of justice, it'll be unjust of me not to introduce the person you see on screen. We told you we are across Africa, East Africa, and we've even touched some of Malawi. Felix Apau, who will be with Bernard and Peter in the next build-up. That's tomorrow night, and those games is from Malawi. So how about we turn our attention to Malawi and get a word of just how it looks like and what the feel is where you are. I should probably start by greeting you, I guess. I'm not sure how much of a delay we have here, but can you hear me? Malawi, can you hear us? Oh, you can hear us. Okay, tell us, what are you feeling? How's the feel, the look with the World Cup starting in a few hours, actually?
All right, the fear isn't that huge. I believe that this is the 2026 World Cup is different from the previous one. We did not get much attention from people that we met or from people around that love soccer. So I believe that this one, maybe if it starts and people would admire the team that they want to support this time around. But as of now, there's no that much vibe of the big stage that we are witnessing for the first time in the past 4 years.
And what about the expectations of Malawi for the African teams that are actually at the World Cup, 10 of them with some big names and obviously the debutants?
Come again, sorry?
The expectations for the 10 African nations at the World Cup from Malawi's point of view.
My bad. I cannot hear you properly.
What hopes do we have for Africa at the World Cup? I know we're dealing with a bit of challenges. Oh, she can hear us. Okay, there we go.
All right. Having 10 teams, I think it's a huge mile for Africans. So we hope for the best. So maybe this time around we are going to see another team reaching the semis, or else maybe for the first time after so many years, since 1930, where it was founded, the big stage FIFA World Cup. So I believe that some of the Africans giants that we know, Senegal, Morocco, we are talking about Tunisia, Algeria. I believe that one of them will shock us and give us the best result in this tournament.
Thank you very much. All the way from Malawi with an interesting observation, gentlemen. Malawians are known to have hope and be resilient in the face of challenges. Are they too hopeful in this particular one with Africa potentially winning the World Cup?
I don't think we have much of a choice. I think the whole of Africa must believe in Africa. It's that simple. So Malawi is doing hopefully the same. I can't imagine if South Africa got a result today. I think it could change what the continent is going to look like in terms of the support for African countries. Because when you ask every African who do they expect to do well or go far in the tournament, you won't find many, apart from the South Africans, saying South Africa is part of that. I think they're talking Senegal and Morocco and a bit of Ivory Coast.
Not sure you'll find many South Africans saying that either.
Okay, that too, if they're sincere enough. So what you're saying is they're realistic enough to say the truth or to say what could most likely happen. But I think if they got a result, it could be completely different. And once it kicks off also, she was talking about, I think, the vibe not being as big as it should be. Once it kicks off, I think the feel will be different.
Clive?
Well, you get this gut feeling. People have been complaining about the vibe, especially on the African continent. And for me, I'll probably put it down to the fact that we feed off a lot that comes from the European media. But this time around, because the World Cup is hosted by a country from the other side of the world, we don't really feed off a lot from what comes from the media in that part of the world. Probably that would explain why the buzz for the World Cup on the African continent this time round has not been felt like it was felt in the years when it was in Europe, when it was in Asia, because of, first of all, the time zones are favorable, but because we consume a lot of information that comes from that part of the world. I would personally just put it down to that as being one of the reasons why we probably have not had a lot of a fanfare of buzz or vibe around the World Cup in this part of the world.
I don't think necessarily. What I understand where Clive is coming from by talking about feeding off the Western media. I think for me, it's because of what has been happening off the pitch, especially when it comes to the country that is going towards the biggest number of games. I think if there was less to do with the controversies in the United States and there was more about the World Cup, the feel would be different. Because in all fairness, until probably a few days ago, it didn't feel like there was actually a World Cup, yet it's in one of, if not the greatest nation on earth. So I think because of the controversies, the visa denials and the likes, everything that has been happening, people a bit forgot about the game. That's why I feel once it kicks off, it will be different.
But guys, this is not a short and, hard tournament. This is more short. Instead of short and pressure, it's more long. It's about duration. Yeah. It's about your ability to, go the long haul with more games. Do you not think Africa is actually built for that?
Well, you're talking about more games. In the past, to win the World Cup, you needed to play 7 games. Today, you're only playing 8. So that is just an extra game. Of course, in total, the games are many compared in the recent past. But you just need to probably take it one game at a time. For a country that is well organized and you have the quality that you need to compete, like Brian said, with 48 nations, we practically have everyone we would have loved to have at the World Cup. Now, can those 32 nations now get themselves to the knockout stages? It would be an embarrassment for countries like South Africa, for countries like Senegal, for countries like Ivory Coast, the countries from the Maghreb, Ghana, if they failed to get out of their groups to actually make it to the round of 32. For me, I feel it would be an embarrassment, because if you cannot qualify as one of the top 2 teams in your group, you have an opportunity to qualify as one of the 8 third best placed teams. And not all the 10 African teams, but at least 7 of the 10 should be able to sneak into the round of 32 with the kind of format we have at the moment.
Did you mean in terms of endurance when you talked about...
Yeah, with the weather, with the traveling here and there, the challenges, we see that across the African continent.
But the thing is, Chico, it's quite different from many years ago, when most of the African countries did not have so many players playing out of Africa.
Yeah.
There's no difference. When you look at the Morocco team, when you look at the Senegalese team, there's no difference with the English and the Spanish, because they're playing in top European leagues. So the demands that we're talking about that are going to be on those players, it's the same thing for Senegal, it's the same thing for Morocco, Ivory Coast, and the likes. Now, while they might endure a bit of the heat because of countries, if you go to Senegal, clearly, they can't be complaining about that. But there are guys who also didn't grow up in Senegal, so maybe they haven't experienced that. So you can clearly see, so you're going to be facing probably the same problems a European could face. So in terms of a bit of the sunshine, they could adapt. But in terms of the demands of the game, in regards to fatigue, I think there's no difference with the African player. Apart from South Africa, where, everyone in the South African team is homegrown. Yes, there might be 1 or 2 playing abroad.
Around this time in their country, it's winter.
Yeah.
And they are going in a totally different kind of environment. But also, Chico, you should remember that historically, as a continent, we have a tendency of disorganizing ourselves at this stage. And usually that is one of the reasons why some of the African teams you expect to perform better at this stage, they fail to perform, not because they don't have the quality, but because of the disorganization in some of these camps.
All right, Clive and Brian, I'll ask you to hold your horses as we come back, because we'll be delving into it. Remember, the socials are going there. We are 26, all 104 matches, live Azam TV, hashtag Azam TV Kenya, and ever so much more. We are asking you to talk to us. Tell us some of those memorable moments that you have seen over the course of the World Cup. It's been absolutely brilliant, and that is exactly what we're expecting this tournament. Mexico, South Africa, the first game to kick us all off, and I can barely wait. What about you? We'll be back with more right here on Azam TV, Sports for HD. Champions of the world. That is what 48 nations are vying for, a title which is earned, not given. And it is within their grasp. And if they can get it, they put the world at their feet. But it's a challenge that is easier said than done. Africa, we're about to delve into the first game of the FIFA World Cup, which will pit Mexico up against South Africa. Didn't even tell you about how it's a repeat of 2010, simply because we all know the story, don't we? What we are talking about are the stories behind the stories, and reminding ourselves of some of the biggest moments over the course of the World Cup since back in the 30s. And now we're in 2026, and the story remains the same. Big names who have won the World Cup are still going in as favorites. How about we talk about those teams? First that jumps to mind has got to be the most recently crowned World Cup winners, Argentina. Brazil is another big name. I'm joined by Brian and Clive, the two gentlemen who will be with me every single day when we are here as a team to build up to this one. Clive, big names, usual suspects, usual result, perhaps?
Well, not sure about the results, but usual suspects. And while you keep on mentioning that list, the English always love to force the three lions into the conversation. Yet their only claim to this equation is the only World Cup they won that was way back in 1966. Brazil are hungry for success. They believe that they should be coming into every competition to win it. But like you've seen in the past, before they won their 1994 crown, they had gone 24 years without winning the World Cup, then before eventually winning it again in 2002. Ever since then, they have even struggled to get themselves back into the final, even when we thought in 2006 that they had a squad good enough to get into the final to try and defend it. But it's always very hard to overlook them as a team that can go out there and win at the World Cup. Argentina and Messi, you feel that they have the quality to compete with most of the teams in Europe. Brian was mentioning, to just go out there and probably make a good case of themselves as a team that can try to defend the World Cup again.
And look at some of those names. France, 98 and 2018. In spite of the fact that they are amazingly talented, they have struggled to dominate the world scene, and we've seen them win and then follow up with some dismal performances. So that will be a concern. You have the likes of Brazil and Germany. Germany will remember what they did to Brazil at home. It was a humbling experience, that 7-1 drubbing. Uruguay have really struggled to get their name back in. And as always, it is England up against Spain. And of course, who can forget the fact that in 2010, when it was hosted, Brian, in Africa, Spain came, Spain saw, Spain absolutely conquered.
You made a point about France having so much talent but having dominated world football. And that's the thing about the World Cup. It may not be enough you having such a good team. It's not enough. So many things have to go your way. You've got to get practically each and every nitty-gritty right. Because the teams that have sometimes won the World Cup necessarily weren't the best teams in that tournament. When you compare quality and everything, it always felt there could have been another team. So things have to be right for you. Now we'll talk about Argentina having won the previous one. The question is, what was driving them in the last World Cup, ensuring that Messi wins the World Cup? So that the discussion of Maradona, Messi, Maradona won the World Cup for Argentina, Messi has never. That is gone now. What's going to be the driving force behind them? Is Messi going to be as driven as he was in Qatar?
Is he physically capable of doing it?
I think he can still play, but the drive is the most important. Because the drive I'm sure that Ronaldo has is probably bigger than Messi's, because he would die, he would pay for anything for him to go out with the World Cup. So that again, that discussion between him and Messi is put on the side. Then you can compare all the other things you want to. So you must have things going your way. You must get practically everything right. The luck and everything that comes with it. It's difficult just to win the World Cup. with only quality. So many things have to be over. That's what most of those teams will need. You look at the quality they have, you can tick. And for me, I think, unlike some of the other previous World Cups, apart from France and maybe a bit of Portugal, the other teams, you can't say they so much star-studded. I think for me, it's those two that you look around, especially like the potential starting 11, and you're only seeing quality. The others, there's one or two you wouldn't expect to be in there. I'm not so sure 10 years ago, Igor Thiago makes a Brazil team, but he's in there.
Absolutely.
Richarlison made the previous one. He was struggling even to play. He was playing for Everton, I think, at the time.
Yes.
So you can clearly see that there's one or two you question until a couple of years back, they don't make the team. But again, those are the ones who could win you the World Cup.
Why I would probably want to put Brazil in the equation, and for me it has nothing to do with their quality, but it has everything to do with the man who is in charge of that team. For a very long time, because most of their talent comes and plays in Europe, and they have over the years struggled against European competition, they felt the need to probably bring in somebody who knows a thing or two about managing football in Europe, because Europe possesses the biggest challenge to them, and that is how they brought in Carlo Ancelotti. Yes, he has never coached a national team, he has never coached at this stage like the World Cup, but you feel he has the experience to probably guide them through and try to get them over the line. Will he be able to do that? Probably that is a question that will be answered as the tournament goes on.
Interestingly enough, Clive brings that up because I'm thinking, boys, when you think about Carlo Ancelotti, you can see how he is good at balancing egos at the same time and top players. Brazil is full of them. It's riddled with class. Then there's also something else that's exceptionally precious about Ancelotti. Apart from that, and obviously his ability to handle the pressure, it's his ability to allow players to express themselves. You get to play with a bit of guidance, but bring yourself out, and that could reignite the Brazilian flair.
You know, there's something I want to say about him. It may sound silly of me for what the guy has won.
It's not the first thing.
It may sound silly. Okay, one of the few things I'm saying. I'm thinking he allows the players a freedom, which is a good thing, and it doesn't complicate the game. But you're going to get to games where you need to complicate it in terms of tactics, and that's not Carlo Ancelotti. When you watch his teams play, the quality players do flourish, and he allows them to do what they have to do. At the World Cup, it's not about how you play, it's about winning. It doesn't matter how you win. And their games is going to get, because the world has become global, and in the process of becoming global, everyone knows what is done in England and the likes. A couple of years back, Jordan, Curaçao, Uzbekistan probably would not be qualifying for the World Cup. But because they can tell and go about the business of what do they do in England, how do we stop, for example, in the case of Brazil, how do we try and limit what Gumares can do to us? How do we, what does Casemiro do? They know all that. So that information brings a bit of a problem. So you have to be up to scratch on how you set up your teams. And that hasn't been that much of Carlo Ancelotti. It's been more, every time they talk about him, it's allowing players to
managing
express themselves.
egos and
it's interesting enough.
Managing them. And one of those is going to manage, I think, his name, who's pure, I think, in that team because of the president and a few fans in Brazil.
And Carlo Ancelotti, to be honest, and the fans, because they blew up, didn't they? When Neymar's being announced as having made the team to the World Cup for Brazil, the fans, Neymar himself, his family members, tears, celebrations, they love that boy, and so do we if you're a football purist. However, in spite of what Brian is saying, they said that about Ancelotti, and he still won Champions League after Champions League after Champions League. But he is right, you need to have a drive, whether it's Portugal giving Ronaldo that argument that he is one of the greatest of all time, or Messi. You need something that drives you. Well, we're driven to Kenya because we are dying to give you a feel of just what it looks like. I'm trying to get away from that picture right there so we can pretty much look at Kenya, because we're driving you to Kenya right there to try and give you a feel of what Kenyans are feeling and their expectations. We've already spoken to Malawi, and now we go to Zani Mohammed, who is in Kenya, ready to break down just what the expectations, the feel ahead of kickoff at the beginning of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Zani. Good.
Yes.
You can hear us. How are you doing, my friend?
As you all know, Kenya is a footballing. I'm very, very nice, my brother. Kenya is nice. The weather is just cool. Everyone is vibing for this ultimate showdown football.
Kila mtu anasema round hii for Africa kuna ngori. Sipokuwa for example Senegal, kuna hopes hapo, kuna hopes kwa Morocco walifika semi-finals just the other day. So questions abound. Hapa kuna mtu anaweza step up. Will we be celebrating Africa na ile ngoma ya finali, puliza firimbi, finali, BN and crew? What a tea, finali.
Well, huku huku wanakuambia ni mbaya. I talked with some of the Kenyan fans here, but everyone is expressing his own opinion. Everyone supports his own country. Some supports European countries. Some supports our very own, that is African countries, like that is South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and so on. But there is this one thing that I've noticed, that it's like in Swahili they say kila mwamba ngoma uvuta upande wake. So kila mtu amejaribu kupeana maoni yake kulingana na kile ambacho anaona timu yake inaenda kukifanya. But the vibe is very high in Kenya. Kenya is a footballing nation, so always expect the vibe to be very high, my friend.
All right, thank you, Zani. We'll be obviously visiting Kenya time and again just to get a feel of the expectations, whether being met, hopes and dreams dashed over the course of the tournament. We will find out. But thank you very much, Zani. Enjoy yourself. Keep an eye. We'll keep updated and enjoy the first game of the World Cup. All right, so we say goodbye to Kenya. We visited Malawi, so there's only one more destination. That is Uganda, but that's in a bit. How about we take a look at Group A? Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, magic is about to happen, and that magic will lead us, gentlemen, to Group A. One of those tough groups. It's hard to say there's a group that's not tough for at least one or two teams, but Group A will be magical to look at. Gentlemen, what do we expect?
Well, for me, without a doubt, I expect the hosts to capitalize on their home advantage to try and at least get out of this group. When you look at South Korea, when you look at the Czech, that's when you get the gut feeling that probably it's going to be a tall order for South Africa, and that is something that Brian mentioned earlier. For me, the result today matters a lot, how far South Africa will go in the competition, because all the four teams in the group are fancying their chances and they feel we can actually get out of this group. Not just getting out of this group, everyone in there feels they can be able to top that group. All you need is 5 points. If you can potentially get all 9 of those, then you are comfortable going into the round of 32. So for me, it is a tough one, especially for South Africa. I'm picking South Africa out because it is an African team representing part of the 10 that are representing the continent. But I'll go with South Korea and Mexico to qualify out of this one.
Tuka, it's a good point that Clive raises. When you look at that group for South Africa, if they can get a result against Mexico or even just hold their own against the host nation, South Korea is not the South Korea of hosting the World Cup back in their day. They are not the same. So that looks like an easy one on paper. The Czech Republic, a shadow of themselves back in the day. What are the chances that if they get a good result today, they could easily make it through?
I think it's a difficult group, actually, because I don't think there's a big difference amongst the four teams. I feel the class isn't huge that Mexico is miles ahead of South Africa, or South Korea being miles ahead of the other three. And I think for me, because of that, it complicates the group. While you talk about the quality of Czech Republic, when you talk about resilience, when you talk about a bit of experience, a team that has been at the World Cup and done some great things apart from definitely Mexico, I think Czech Republic will be making a lot of noise, and they will look at the group and feel we've got such a good chance. But at the same time, like I was saying earlier, South Africa will look at all the other teams and say we could have been in a harder group. Because it's South Korea, because it's Czech Republic, not the biggest of names, we should give ourselves a chance. Now, the first game, I think, for all the teams, for me, will be quite decisive. If you're South Africa and get a point against Mexico, the confidence you take in the next game is going to be massive. And I think that could be a difference. For the likes of Czech Republic and South Korea, probably they're thinking we still have a chance. We probably have a bit of quality. They've got three players that they'll be relying on. And I love how they're distributed, because one in defense and then the forward lines. So they'll be relying on that. Czech Republic have got some quality across. If you talk about quality and experience and players playing probably at the highest of levels, I think they've got more quality and bigger players than all the other three. But the experience of Mamelodi Sundown players, could be playing on the continent. But if you see how they played and even how they exemplified themselves at the Club World Cup, they might have not gotten much, but they got a lot of praises from people who felt they loved how they play. And it's not going to be much different how the Mamelodi Sundown play and how South Africa is going to play. Because of this time around, Orlando Pirates, because of the kind of campaign they had, they've got a good number of players. At the AFCON, there was a huge chunk of Mamelodi Sundown, and they were quite dominant. Even this time around, you feel. But that experience of winning changes the mindset of so many players, and the other players can rub off that. And I feel that is going to be a really key. It's a tough group. Mexico home advantage. The others, I feel, any of them, I think, can come out of that group.
Well, talking about quality, look at the quality of the stadium which this game will be hosted. Brilliant. The turnout, amazing. I remember Africa, Kenya, we hosted the Chan, and I'm looking at the organization as the fans trickle in. Mexico coming alive. It is a brilliant organization, and the challenges that we face as Kenya during Chan ahead of the Pamoja bid, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania are lessons that we have learned the hard way, and it will be good to just take notes, and hopefully some people went to benchmark for this particular one.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn from them, because it's three countries. Definitely, we've already played an expanded AFCON, but some good lessons to learn, because it's three countries, same thing as AFCON next time around, how you manage this. Of course, different infrastructure, systems and the likes, but there's still something you can learn. And you see, there's a lot of hope for the Mexicans because of who they are facing. While they drew with South Africa in 2010, they'll be thinking we couldn't have gotten an easier or better fixture for our first game than playing South Africa. So I'm sure there's a lot of belief and hope amongst the fans.
Chico, you talk about benchmarking. How often do our people go to such tournaments to benchmark? On so many occasions, they go on holiday. So you would expect us as a region that is getting ready to host Africa Cup of Nations
you didn't have to say that.
to pick so many lessons, but unfortunately we don't. But I mean, you're looking at those numbers, and of course the stadium is one that can accommodate close to 80,000 spectators. So meaning every time Mexico is playing, expect 80,000 spectators in the pitch, which in one or the other makes it very hard for the opponents. Brian talked about quality, and most of these players, of course, they have been exposed to that kind of atmosphere, to those kind of numbers, especially when they are playing at home in their domestic leagues, but also on the continent. So you feel that if you're playing at a stage like the World Cup, the atmosphere is not something that phases you. Even if you are a debutant, you are surrounded by people that have been there before. Brian talks about players from Mamelodi Sundowns. If you are playing for South Africa, I mean, you've been dealing with that for the last 4 years. Every time you're playing on the continent, facing teams from the Arab nation. So you feel that they won't be that phased going into a game like this. You don't feel that the crowd or the atmosphere will have an impact on the final result of the pitch.
Well, they're used to that atmosphere, used to a lot of things. What about the altitude?
That's one of the reasons why they went early. Actually, Hugo Bruce mentioned it, that they needed to go early and camp in that kind of environment because he wanted his players to get used to that. Whether it does happen by now that their bodies are used to that, probably that is something that we are going to find out today and in the other games that they will be playing. But he requested that they should travel early. Of course, they had a couple of friendlies at home before they go to travel. They had their own travel issues, how some officials didn't get visas because an official didn't submit their names on the list and stuff like that. But at least a big chunk of players and officials traveled early, and you feel for the time they have been in Mexico, their bodies have been able to acclimatize and get used to the environment.
But does he really think that that will help South Africa when you have Mexico at home? They're used to this 100%. That plays into their hands, doesn't it?
No, absolutely. And but also you're thinking, the teams do put a lot of investment in these tournaments, and part of that investment goes to preparations for the tournament. Now, while it's difficult to clearly adjust to the heat, you can do as many preparations as you want, but it's always difficult. I think they would have had a plan way before this World Cup. I'm sure they must have had that we're going to have this kind of weather. So you've got to get used to it. And the first thing you do, have it at the back of your mind. Because if the mind goes with it and you feel it's going to be problems for us, then you'll struggle. But if you try as much as you can to ignore that, then focus on the game is much, much better. But there's going to be an effect, especially if the game is stretched. The heat will come into play big time. And I would expect it.
The stretch is going to be huge, just like Brian is mentioning. And I'll still take you back to last summer at the FIFA Club World Cup. And again, most of the managers have been talking about the issue of having their substitutes following proceedings of the game from the dressing room. Because it is too hot for you to be seated on the bench. You'd rather be in the dressing room, a warm-up from there, then only come out when they actually want you to get onto the pitch. Because we saw a lot of that during the FIFA Club World Cup and expect that from different teams during this World Cup.
But what difference is it? Doesn't it even affect you, Monko? So you come from the coolers and then go into...
No, there are warm-up areas in the dressing rooms.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is still different weather, and then you're coming onto the pitch. You know?
It's tougher when the body is rested and easier when the body is active on the pitch.
No, speaking of dressing rooms, how about we visit those two dressing rooms for both South Africa and Mexico ahead of kickoff with this one, because that argument is far from over between Clive and Tuka. So it's going to be one entertaining fixture, but it doesn't start at kickoff. It starts slightly before that in that dressing room where the preparations ahead of the magic happens. And so there we go. You were talking, Clive, about the dressing room, and here we go. We get some visuals for you to talk about the dressing room.
This is one part of the dressing room, but of course there are warm-up areas for every team, because one of the requirements for a stadium to host games at this stage is to have warm-up areas for both teams beyond the warm-up area, rather beyond the pitch where teams usually warm up ahead of kickoff. So you feel that sometimes we wonder how players come out and they're warming up for only 15 to 20 minutes. The biggest chunk of the warm-up has already been done in the warm-up areas. I
see the boxing belt, the WBC belt.
Was that for Canelo Alvarez? It must be for Canelo.
Most likely.
It must be for Canelo. He's clearly
pulling out all the stops.
Win the World Cup. Well, Canelo
God knock them out.
Nah, he needs to be reminded that it's football and not boxing. Probably he's got a bigger chance to win a world title than the team, but they will believe, no doubt about it. But the other problem about what Club is talking about and teams saying that as we watch the Mexican teams and their coach, Aguirre, how do you want to pronounce it, arriving, and I'm sure there's a lot of cheers. If you don't watch the game, there are subs that are made where you have to be watching that game. Yeah. If you go and warm up in the warm-up area, are you watching the game?
Yeah. The facilities have been arranged in a manner that you can't be able to follow the game from anywhere, from the dressing rooms and stuff like that.
It's different when you're watching on the pitch. I'll be very honest with you. I don't see many...
Well, I mean, if it was wrong, then scientists or physiotherapists wouldn't be encouraging substitutes to go and follow the other.
I think you can go and warm up a bit, but for the biggest part, they will be on the pitch, I think, watching the game. It's different when you're there watching what's happening on the pitch than being far watching on TV, because especially changes that are made in the midfield, tactical changes especially, it's different when you're on TV and when you're right there to see the reaction of the opponents and and things like those. So I think there will be a good number. They have to keep up with the sun.
Well, there's the South African dressing room, but just like Brian was saying, Chico, and it takes us back to what I said. 4 years ago, Qatar had a challenge of weather, and they found a solution for that challenge. You remember how all their stadiums had AC in them and stuff like that, and it was comfortable not only for the players, but also for the fans that had come up. The USA had that challenge in the FIFA Club World Cup last year, but by the look of things, a year later, they have still not found a solution for that challenge, and it's going to have an effect on the tournament. Like we did say, expect lots of stoppages in those games because of one thing or the other, and most of those stoppages are actually going to be for long spells because it is out of the hands of the referees, and you can just wait until you are told, okay, it is now safe for play to resume as the South African team does arrive.
There's something I'm looking out for when they're arriving. I don't know if the players have stayed back and the technical team has moved ahead because the arrival of South Africa. This is the one. Magical. This is the one I'm talking about.
We were waiting for
That's
this.
the one. That's the one I was talking about.
Big names, the jerseys, Foster Mokoena, Wesley Williams. But what we really wanted to see is what South Africa deliver: music, entertainment, and dance moves that create waves around the world. And so it begins. Leading the way for Africa is the team from the South, Bafana, translating into the boys who will be dancing their way into this game, hopefully dancing their way straight out of this group and into the knockout stage.
I don't like the fact that they're not upgrading this routine. How about a bit of Amapiano? We've had enough of this. Come on, guys.
Amapiano is too modern. This is more traditional.
No, that's what we're saying. No, Amapiano is live. You can mix it up a bit. I don't like the fact that they're not mixing it up. But even then, I love this. You love watching them do this.
And this is something we'll see a lot of. Azam, you remember right here on Azam TV, hashtag WeAre26, hashtag all 104 matches live, Azam TV, hashtag Azam TV Kenya. That's our handle, Azam TV UG and Azam TV ZW. So if you are watching from Malawi, AzamTV.mw, please share your thoughts. Check out our social media handles. Follow us as we bring you 104 matches live in HD in both English and Swahili in terms of the build-up to those particular games as you enjoy every single game Swahili, obviously on Azam TV Sports HD 2, and of course Azam TV Sports 4 HD. That's where we are as we try to build towards this one. Now, there's something now that we're talking and seeing the dancing and the moves for South Africa that I'm wondering if it will give Africa an edge or, brings a bit of intimidation. The change in terms of how they line up on the pitch.
What do you mean, like the lineups?
Do you think there's, one of the things I love when it comes to rugby is the haka. There's an intimidation to it. Do you think Africa needs to use that tactic to even play a role?
Probably this should be done a bit more when they are going for the warm-up, or unfortunately they can't do
actually
it
when they're going for the warm-up.
No, but unfortunately they can't do it for kickoff because there's a routine you have to follow.
The haka has been accepted by the rugby world,
exactly.
So it is part of the rugby routine.
But you'd love to see it, and probably a bit intimidating because you're thinking these guys' nerves because of the numbers in the stadium, and they're telling you, we don't see nothing. We are here to play the game and we don't care about what's happening. But it's a bit of confidence. It's a bit of, I think, a boost in terms of the mood when they are walking in. I'm sure that clearly stays with them.
Well, we'll have to cut it short right here because now it's time to cross over to Mexico for the opening ceremony ahead of kickoff. Here we go.